you don't see the journey that they've gone through and the challenges that they've gone through. So that's the biggest thing for me. So that really helps with what I'm doing day to day. Although I then forget to check the CRM.
Burnout. When you're starting to think about, oh, maybe I'm burnt out, you're already way past the burnout.
Yeah.
Already well down that path. How do you bring yourself back from it?
Welcome to the Neurodivergent Business Minds Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Thurston. And this podcast is dedicated to exploring the unique challenges and incredible strengths of neurodivergent business owners. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, or maybe you have family at home who are neurodiverse, this podcast is for you. So today we have this very special guest, Dave Christie, here with us today, who is going to help me introduce this podcast and explore the reasons why I'm here today and what I'm doing as well. So thank you very much for joining me today, Dave. How are you?
Very good, thank you. It's a pleasure to come on board. I'm very intrigued by this podcast, and Absolutely. As you know, something quite close to my heart. So I was very intrigued and honoured to be invited on.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure myself. If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then we can get started into today's podcast.
Absolutely. So my name is Dave Christie. I look after 5 different businesses currently at the moment, and I have dyslexia myself.
Yeah.
And I help and support small businesses locally to manage struggles and overcome knowledge gaps to improve and drive themselves and in turn their businesses as well.
Oh, excellent.
When we spoke originally and you talked about this, floated this idea out, it really intrigued me as to your motivations behind it. So what brought about this podcast for you?
Well, for me, it was a case of I was trying to build my business as a photographer, and I went through a period where I was really struggling to get jobs done, even the simplest jobs. I was easily distracted. I was burning out all the time, and I started questioning, well, what's going on in my life and what's going on in my mind and why these things are happening. I started questioning things and then started talking a bit more about things. And the more I opened up about my struggles, the more other people opened up as well. And I was able to relate with other people. And the more I spoke about it, the more people were able to start to pick up on certain traits of mine that aligned with potentially ADHD. And it's nothing that's ever really crossed my mind before. And once I started looking into it more and really diving deep into the research and thought, hang on a minute, all these boxes are being ticked. For the more and more I went into it, I thought, okay, there could be something here. But then everything started to make a bit more sense as to what's going on. Why am I experiencing these things? And I mean, I've only really in the last year since realized these things. So quite a lot later on in life, and I've been through all the kind of processes in life without necessarily being picked up on, but perhaps I was covering it up a bit and didn't really realize what was going on. So that's where this idea with the podcast came about. So I wanted to hopefully help other people to prevent other people going through what I went through. And, noticing that my mental health was declining and then speaking to the doctor about that. And so that's where this has come from, really.
I like that. And I think having spoken to lots of people like you've just talked around there, people identifying with some of your challenges, must have been a bit inspiring for you to do this. I'm going to just draw you back on a couple of things you just spoke about there.
Sure.
Because you talked about certain symptoms and things that you were dealing with, and then you talked around burnout as well.
Yeah.
What were those symptoms and how did you know? What were the signs and what were the things you were struggling with day to day?
Day to day, it was even some of the simplest tasks that I would really struggle getting over the line to even get started. And the longer my to-do list got, the more I just kind of froze and couldn't get anything done. I'd also noticed that I perform a lot better when there's a certain deadline involved, and all of a sudden there's a mad rush to get everything done. But I can crack on and just get it all done. And I sit there thinking, well, why can I not just do that any other time of day and any other time of the week? And So it's those type of things that kind of started adding up, and more of like realizing, even having a conversation when there's lots of noise going around behind you, that it was really difficult to maintain that conversation one-to-one, because I'm listening to about 5 different conversations around me and really trying to focus on interacting one-to-one. So yeah, there was a lot that kind of really added up and started to make sense. I mean, there's a huge list of things that I could go through, but yeah, for me, it was just thinking about the simplest of tasks, replying to emails or staying organized. And I've always been conscious of the fact that if I didn't have something in my diary, I would potentially forget it or miss it. So I was very conscious of making sure as soon as an appointment came up, it would go in my calendar. So that kind of does help keep me on track. Other than that, if it's not in my calendar, it will not happen. So it's just finding these processes to manage what I do to help me try and succeed. So yeah, the more I put things off as well, and my to-do list got longer and longer and longer, the more I just froze and just couldn't get anything done. So yeah, the kind of just the mental overload and just kind of couldn't do anything. So just kind of burnt out with that, really.
I think a lot of people will be able to relate to that, even if they aren't neurodivergent.
Yeah.
They haven't been diagnosed with anything. There's a lot of people now that will be going, oh my God, he's just literally talked about my life. Exactly what I think about there. I just want to delve a little deeper on today. You talked about, obviously, the kind of pause and that hesitation to do stuff because of the overwhelm.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
It made me feel like I wasn't capable, and I felt like I was a bit broken, and my own self-worth was just kind of deteriorating, I suppose. And I think I would potentially look at other people, and as much as people say, don't compare yourself to others, but you do see what other people are doing. And I start to think, well, why can't I do that? And why am I not able to get these things over the line and really struggle with doing things? But yet, again, when those deadlines are hot on my tail, I just get it all done. So it's that added pressure, and apparently I perform under stress. So yeah, and then, I mean, even day-to-day life, just things like that pile up on you, and it starts to really hammer down on things as well.
Turn a corner then.
Is making sure I've got deadlines in place and try to stay ahead of them as much as possible. The biggest thing for me is that I'm still not sure how I do turn the corner. So I'm still going through my own processes of trying to figure out everything as well, and trying to work out what works best for me, what works best for the business, and trying to manage those types of things. So for me, definitely having some form of deadline really helps. Even in my business as a photographer, I'd have editing to do, for example. And if I didn't book that client back in for their ordering appointment, that editing pile just kept going and going and going until I've really got to get it done. So adding those deadlines in, made sure I had a target to aim for. Otherwise, it would just not get over the line.
Because you mentioned about how obviously the business that you run, and it's been a pleasure watching it grow and grow.
Thank you.
Obviously, with that comes more and more pressure.
Of course.
About stress. And I think as business owners, stress doesn't go away.
No.
So I think it's all around learning how to manage it, learning how to minimize it, and learning around how to deal with it when it comes up so that it doesn't overwhelm you. And you've talked about putting stuff into the diary, but you've also got a whole business to run. How do everyone lets things slip. Everyone talks about things, plate spinning, etc. Not that I particularly believe that, but it's something that a lot of people do believe in. So for them, it is very relevant. How do you manage the growth of the business, of the expanse of what you're doing, everything that's going on around you, and still have the ability to find that time for you? It's the one thing that clients that I speak to never have the time for themselves. How have you managed to factor that in? Because I think that'll help a few people.
Yeah, I always find the busier that I get, the more productive I am, because I don't have the time to allow things to slip. So if I don't have these things in place, or if I have a quiet week, for example, I'll try and find other things for me to do to fill the gaps, as well as obviously trying to get through my to-do list. I've had to bring on a CRM, so that really helps with what I'm doing day to day, although I then forget to check the CRM. And they are working on notifications, so hopefully that will help things significantly with that. That keeps me on track with where I'm at to with clients, what photo shoots I've got coming up, where certain jobs that need to be done, need to get done by. I've got workflows set up with that. So that really, really helps me keep on top of what I'm doing with my clients. Otherwise, it would be a real struggle without that, to be honest. I found that using, again, so I use in particular Google Calendar for my diary, and I found certain apps that work in correlation with Google Calendar that can adjust your schedule in line with what you've got going on, so it can adjust things of that as well. And yeah, for me, it's just a case of going with the needs of the business, I suppose. And as that is particularly growing, which is great, I do look at potentially outsourcing more of the tasks of the business. So at the moment, I outsource a couple of other things as well, including social media and accountancy and stuff like that. So that's really helped get that over the line as well, to kind of keep on top of everything else with that. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do at the moment anyway.
I think it is that adding those little things in as you go along. It'd be interesting maybe to help share maybe in the notes afterwards around what CRMs and what systems that you're using, or what is no best. And there is one thing for everybody. Sometimes it's good to understand what you're using and why you're using it.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm going to kind of ask you a little bit of a tougher question, I think, because I think what you're talking about in this podcast, and even just sitting here with me, and we've known each other a while, but even it's difficult to admit that you're not normal in certain eyes.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that that's a thing. I think we're all different, and I think that somewhere along the line, everyone's got something somewhere, and we're all equal in that measure. But some people would say that, well, when you have certain conditions, that you're not part of that normal group, and it's not still today a taboo to even say, I need help. I've got a problem. This is me. I talk about colitis and start so on, because I think it's important, and some of the losses that and people look at me and they're like, you're so brave. And I don't think I am, because I want other people to feel comfortable doing it as well. What's your motivation for sharing and really building this podcast?
I mean, for me, I've definitely put myself in a position of vulnerability. Had that been probably 2 years ago, I'd have ran a mile if you gave me the idea of starting a podcast and talking about the struggles that I've been through. Again, going back to the more I spoke to people, the more it helped them realize. So if I was to speak to someone who has, maybe their child has ADHD, for example, and the more I spoke about my challenges that I go through, and even speaking about my home life, that really helped them understand what their child goes through every day. And there was like a spark that just kind of ignited that. I thought, this can go further, and I can hopefully open this up to a wider audience to allow people to understand what people go through. Because the more you talk about these types of things, it shouldn't be someone's got a problem. It's just a case of there's certain challenges that they do face, and moving away from they're not normal, and it's just they're something a little bit different, and they have different ways of dealing with their day-to-day life. So yeah, for me, that really sparked that motivation for me to open up about myself and move this forward to hopefully helping other people, especially with running a business when you're on your own and you lose all sorts of structure from when you've been employed, and you've got this structure that's keeping you in check. But then you go to being self-employed or running your own business, you've then got to find that structure, and it's all down to you then. But also when you're on your own all the time in your own office or at home, you're in your own thoughts all the time, and you're kind of looking outside rather than sometimes looking within and seeing what is actually going on. And to know that it is okay to go through these feelings and the emotions. And more nowadays, a lot of people later on in their life are figuring these types of things out, because there is more awareness. And the idea of this podcast isn't to create more awareness around neurodiversity specifically, but it's how to help people who are going through these things. So if they are neurodiverse themselves or undiagnosed or even unrealized, because if you don't realize what's going on, you start to really, really doubt yourself. And that's what happened with me. And I was to and from the doctors. They put me on antidepressants since realizing the ADHD. And I'd speak about it to the doctors about that I think this could be the case. And it's often brushed away, unfortunately. So that's why I found more benefit in talking to different people.
And for the people that are listening, potentially if someone has gone to the doctors, they have been brushed away, they have been put on antidepressants, they have been, because the NHS is strict.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's necessarily bad people doing bad things.
No, not at all.
It's stretched that are just rotating people around.
Absolutely, yeah.
Try and prioritise what's important and getting through the countless ways.
Yeah.
How do you go from, I've been given antidepressants, this is what someone has told me that's a professional, to going, I don't believe that, and taking that next step?
For me, at the time, I kind of just accepted that that was the case, that I could be depressed, but I never felt depressed in myself. I just felt burnt out all the time.
What does that mean?
With being burnt out.
Yeah.
So I would wake up in the morning and just not want to do anything. And even though I've got, again, this to-do list, I've got jobs to do, if I don't have to be in the studio until the afternoon, I wouldn't be getting up and getting in at the same time every day. I just drag myself in when I need to and just constantly exhausted. I mean, I do work a lot, so it's probably a big contributing factor, but my mind just never switches off. It's always just on, even trying to go to sleep. I have the best ideas possible when I'm trying to get to sleep.
Of course you do.
As I'm sure a lot of people do, or when I'm in the shower or driving. So voice notes become vital at that point.
Really occasion there for sure.
Yeah. But then I record the voice note and then forgot that I've even recorded the voice note and forget to even utilize that. But these options are there if I need them.
We always talk about burnout and we throw a lot of things into burnout.
Yeah.
Sometimes burnout isn't burnout.
Yeah.
And sometimes burnout is just being a busy fool or not having structure or feeling you've got too much and too pressure. Whereas actually what you're talking about there with burnout, actually, from my understanding, you're probably way past burnout at that stage.
Right.
Burnout, when you're starting to think about, oh, maybe I'm burnt out, you're already way past the burnout.
Yeah.
Already well down that path. How do you bring yourself back from it? What went through, what process did you go through internally and, of course, externally to then go, I don't believe this anymore. There must be something better.
For me, it's just realigning with my goals and reminding myself of why I'm doing this, why I'm trying to help other business owners with one particular side of my business, and also creating the memories on the other side of the business and remembering that I'm doing a lot of it for other people, but also for my own benefit in the long run, because I want to provide a better life for me and my family, and live the life that I want to live. I was striving for more than just living with the life that I was having. And again, so going back to the ADHD side of things, the more I looked into and did some research into the symptoms and everything else as well, everything started to add up and make sense. And that's what really helped me go through the phases of accepting that I'm a little bit different to how I probably thought I was, even knowing that, again, knowing that it's okay. And then the more, again, I spoke about it, the more it resonated and I could resonate with other people. And that's what really helped me get over the kind of, over the lump in my journey, I suppose. You know, I've spoken to many people through therapists and friends, family, and that's really helped to kind of really understand things as well.
So I've got two questions that I want to go through before we sort of wrap this up and bring this to a close. And the first one is you talked about family. Were they all, have they been with you the whole way? Did you keep that to yourself? How did you talk to them? How did you engage them with that? Because that can be really difficult.
Really, really difficult, actually. And I hadn't even spoken to my girlfriend about it. I suppose I opened up a couple of times, but never really delved into and had that sit down conversation with her until I fully understood what was going on with myself. And when we were able to look back, you think, well, yeah, that's why you do certain things. And if you do keep these things closed in, I mean, since I've had this conversation with my girlfriend, everything is just so much, I don't want to say easier, but there's so much more understanding going on that it's a lot more things are accepted. And if I get home from a long day at the studio and I just need a bit of time to just decompress, she allows me that time. And then we can then spend the evening together. Whereas if I'm getting back and my head's been going at 100 miles an hour all day, and then we dive into deep conversations about what's going on in her life and my life, it all becomes a bit overwhelming. So I just take that time when I get back and decompress, and then I'm ready to be present in the moment, because otherwise my mind is in so many different other places. Once I realized what is going on, I was then able to open up to my family and to my mum, to my dad, and tell them what's going on. And that's, it's helpful because you're opening up your support network. Because when it's just yourself, if you're keeping it all to yourself, it just kind of keeps pounding down until you kind of hit in the deeper moments. But yeah, the more I talk about it now, I'd happily stand on the stage. I guess what I'm doing now, putting myself in the forefront and just saying, this is what I've got going on. I'm confident enough to speak about it, and in the aim to help other people. I guess the big thing as well is with business owners, when you see a successful business owner who are neurodiverse themselves with ADHD, or they could be autistic or any of the neurodiversities, but you don't see the journey that they've gone through and the challenges that they've gone through. So that's the biggest thing for me, is trying to allow other people this platform to be able to open up a little bit and talk about the challenges that they've faced along their journey. And I'm still very on in that journey, but I'm trying to find ways to help myself and to help other people, and to, shine a bit of a spotlight on, it's not just a clean, easy road to be successful. Yeah. I suppose in any business, it's never that case. But when you throw in a neurodiversity into the mix, it makes it all the more challenging.
And I guess, as you mentioned there, it is a journey, and we're always learning and growing, and this will allow people to learn from each other. You'll be able to learn from everybody, and we'll be able to share that.
Definitely.
So I had two questions. My last question, and probably the one that wraps this up quite nicely then, is you've talked a lot around conversations. Talking to people, to going out into the world and having those conversations and sharing that. If you're someone that's listening to this and you feel that this is you, but you haven't been able to, you might be thinking, I want to come on here.
Yeah.
This is a great platform. Or you just want to have a conversation with your parents or your partner or a friend or somebody, but you haven't been able to build that courage yet to do that. What advice would you give to somebody that sits in that position?
I mean, I'm no expert, but I would say starting off small, introduce certain bits into conversation, especially with your family. I mean, me with my girlfriend, I dropped it in, like I said, a few times. And then as we turned around and said, well, let's have a proper conversation about this. And that wasn't easy. It certainly wasn't easy. But afterwards, it was just this weight that was just lifted from my shoulders.
Just, why wasn't it easy?
Because I was having to say why I'm not perfect, and I'm opening up about my feelings is never easy, particularly as a guy, I suppose. And it's always been a kind of, I've always kept my feelings to myself, but since I've got older, I definitely open up more about my feelings, and there shouldn't be any taboo around opening up about your feelings. And especially when you're in a relationship, it might not be the first thing you say when you meet someone, but when you're building a strong relationship, it should definitely be part of it. because they can help so much more than you ever realize, because they see you every day. And that's what really helps get that over the line. And for me, talking about it is definitely, it was never an easy thing to start doing. But now I've started doing it, I'll talk to anyone about it now.
What was the first thing you said? If someone, again, just, this is your opinion. What was the first thing you said? And how did it make you feel?
So the first thing I was saying in conversations in person to friends and even to family was, I struggle doing this, but this is what I feel like is the case. And this is a potential answer for it and an explanation for why I do what I do. And for me, it made me feel, once I know that they're almost accepting of it, it makes me feel a lot better in myself, and that it is accepted. And it shouldn't be kind of a stigma around these conversations. So if you're listening and you're maybe a partner of someone who's going through these types of things, is to try and give them the space to open up about that and provide a supporting hand, I suppose, as well, because you don't realize how much it does help someone. And it goes a really, really long way. It goes to anyone, families and friends and all sorts, friends in business as well. It's especially when I started going to networking events, the more people you speak to, the more you realize that, I'm just one guy on my own building a business, but there are other people out there going through the same thing. You might think you're the only one going through that, but actually a lot more people are going through it than you might think. They just don't tell you about it.
And worse.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. So yeah, definitely recommend just slowly bringing it into conversation. You don't have to go fully open. Just start to wean things into it slightly. And I think that will help, because it can be quite overwhelming for the other person as well, if you offload everything. But I think when you start to unravel these things, it definitely helps.
Setting yourself up for a good conversation is always good. Just tucking into your Sunday roast and just saying, I've got something I want to talk to you about. Maybe not. I think it's preparing people, also preparing the people that are going to listen, and maybe preparing them over a period of weeks to kind of talk around, have you seen this, or have you seen this, and just soften the conversation, because you want to set yourself up for success. You don't.
100%.
The other person may or may not know how to deal with it, and that's also okay.
Yeah.
The more that we normalise, everybody is slightly different, normalise talking about it. And I think the really 100%. Important thing is that whilst everybody here is listening, and it's great to listen, it's also that there is always someone to talk to.
Yeah.
And hopefully through the guests and through yourself sharing these experiences, it will give people, hopefully some people, the confidence to reach out and talk. And if not, we're always available to do that. You've set that platform up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I want to create some form of community around this, that it becomes a safe place for people to talk and to open up about certain things they're going through. Along the way, I'll be speaking to other professionals as well, whether that's, psychologists and doctors and coaches, ADHD coaches, or, other coaches in the industry as well, to really, because again, I'm no expert, but I want to get the experts' opinions on these things as well to really help.
That blend as well, because sometimes we sit back and it's easy then to go, well, you would say that because you're an expert, or you would say that because you've it. Haven't. How do I deal with it? So having that nice blend,
definitely,
will give that really well-rounded, just learning opportunity for people as well.
Absolutely,
very, very proud of doing that. I think it's quite brave.
Yeah,
I think it's a challenge.
Yes,
but I absolutely commend it, and I look forward to listening to the sessions.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Neurodivergent Business Minds Podcast, where I've been your host, Alex Thurston, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, or by all means share the episode with someone that you might find gets a lot of value from this podcast. I'll see you in the next one.